Hey, Greg here, founder of Wrestling-Divas.webs.com, your source for highlighting the most beautiful and deadly entertainers in professional wrestling. My next special guest, although only in her second year as a professional wrestler, is making quite a name for herself. She has recently appeared for Spike TV's Total Nonstop Action Wrestling under their Knockouts Knockdown 2 pay-per-view, where she faced former Knockouts Champion Brooke Tessmacher. I'd like to welcome my next special guest, the lovely Deonna Purrazzo. Hi, Deonna. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
I have to touch upon recent events. You appeared for Spike TV's Total Nonstop Action Wrestling under their Knockouts Knockdown pay-per-view, where you faced former Knockouts champion Brooke Tessmacher. Now,
yes.
A lot of people don't get this type of opportunity to make their debut for one of the largest federations in the world that's televised on pay-per-view. I mean, I was just kind of blown away at the amount of talent that was involved with the event. And I'm sure that the nerves were at an all-time high for you, seeing as you're very young in your career. So I would like to know what you took away from the event that you feel would enhance your career moving forward, and what it was like to debut for such an awesome company.
I think I took away from this experience just to be comfortable in who I am. And, you know, when I had got down there, of course I was nervous. Like you said, this was, you know, my debut into wrestling. This was going to give, you know, the world a look at who I am, and that's so unique, being so young and so new. At the time, I was just a little over a year in the business, so nervous is like an understatement. But taking away from it, you know, I was really nervous about having to do the promo and just what it was going to feel like to be in front of all of those people. And now I just go into any show that I do, and I'm just like, well, if I could get through the TV taping, you know, for Knockouts Knockdown, I could get through anything. So I'm not as nervous, and I'm just more comfortable in my ability to perform.
Now, when you were working with Brooke, she was playing the heel, and I thought she did a great job as the heel, kind of bullying you, seeing as that you were inexperienced in comparison to her. What was it like working with her, seeing as that she's really made a name for herself? People compare her to Trish Stratus because she had a modeling background and no prior wrestling experience before heading into the industry.
I was lucky because I had done a seminar at the school that I train with Pat Kenny, who is a part of TNA Creative. And I've gotten a chance to meet Robbie E, and I had met Brooke prior to working with her. So going in to that situation, I was comfortable, hoping I was going to be able to work with her. And since we knew each other, she's seen me wrestle before, so she knew what my style was. Of course, I've seen her, whether it was, you know, in her days at ECW or now on TNA. So just to work with her was great. She was, you know, understanding that I was new to all of this, and I didn't really I had to, you know, adjust myself to work the hard cam and not care that, you know, in the Impact Zone there's three sides, the fans, and then the hard cam, there's no one on that side. So it's a little different than doing a regular indie show. So she kind of was a really good coach into what it's like to work.
So I have to ask you, you just turned 20 this year. You're heading into now your second year in the industry. What was the defining moment in your life that made you decide that you wanted to pursue wrestling seriously? Because everyone has that moment where they go, you know, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. What was that moment for you?
I had a twin brother, and so I grew up on a street with all guys and my brother, and, you know, they liked to roughhouse, so I grew up all around wrestling. And I want to say it was Stone Cold and Chris Jericho, but I could be wrong. But it was Stone Cold and someone, and he was hitting someone with a chair, and that was my first real, like, oh my God, what is this? And I sat down and I was just so intrigued by it, and I just wanted to know everything. I became, like, obsessed with it. And from that day on, I was just hooked. And I was 9 at the time, and I told my mom, like, I'm going to be a professional wrestler. This is what I want to do. And she was just like, okay, yeah, right. You know, she laughed at me, but I was persistent, and she told me eventually when you're 18 and you can afford to sign up for a wrestling school and that's still what you want to do, then go for it. So December of 2012, I found out about a wrestling school that was like 20 minutes from my house, and I didn't even tell her I was going. I just went and I signed up. And I came home and I was like, all right, so I'm going to train. I'm going to be a wrestler. And she was mad that I did it. You know, I signed the contract for it and stuff at the school, but crazy journey since. And honest to God, like all of my dreams have come true. And I say to people that don't think indie wrestling is even like something big. To me, it's big because this is all I've ever wanted to do. And I might not be on TV right now regularly, but I still have, you know, my little group of fans that come to all my shows, and I'm a star in their eyes. So that's kind of the coolest thing for me.
So as far as the training process goes, did you have any expectations heading into it? And if so, how have they changed over time now that you've got some experience in the ring?
When I went into my first day at training, so Damian Adams is my trainer, and Jersey Devil runs D2W Pro Wrestling. So when I went for my first day, I didn't know what to expect, and Damian Adams kind of talked to me for a while and was just explained the business and what he's done. He's been so successful, and then it was time to get in the ring, and I didn't know what it would feel like to take a bump, and they just had me bump like 100 times. So that's really all I did. I ran the ropes a little bit. They taught me how to lock up. And then when I went home and I went to sleep, like the next day I couldn't get up. I was so sore, and my neck was killing me. So kind of as my first day, like I went in just like guns blazing. I was up for whatever. And then the second day I was like, oh, God, can I really do this? It doesn't hurt this much, but luckily you get used to it and your body becomes accustomed to it. Your muscles kind of grow that, like, scar tissue around them to absorb all that shock. So it's not as bad now, I promise.
So this is no surprise to any wrestling fan, really, but you know, this industry is a male-dominated industry, and the opportunities for ladies out there, they're growing, but they're certainly not at the same level. So going into your wrestling school, I'm sure that there were a lot less girls than there were guys. Did you feel under pressure with that fact at all, like you had to prove something to the rest of the competitors there, or did you just go with the flow?
A little bit of both, I think. I was the only female at the school at the time. So the school was brand new, so there was only 2 or 3 trainees, and I trained with Damian Adams again, and Sean Bennett, who's a ref down at NXT now. He helped me a lot before he got called down, and so I kind of felt like to the guys I had to prove myself. I knew that once I got a hang of it, I knew I could do it. It was just repetition and adaptation to all these crazy things you're learning how to do, but being the only female, I think, put a little bit more pressure on me just to prove to them I could stick it out. And now Damian tells me, you know, when I first walked in, he was like, oh, great, like, you're going to be here a month and then she's going to leave. But, you know, it's been 2 years, and I think to him at least and to the guys that I train with regularly now, I've definitely proved myself. And, yeah, I think they believe in me more now.
So what was the first major lesson that this industry taught you through personal experience that you wouldn't have been able to learn through word of mouth?
Everyone says, you know, just go out there and have fun. And it's hard because you know, when you're trying to work with another woman who, being trained with guys, you know, it's hard because you don't know what it's like to train with a woman, and you don't know what it's like to pick up a woman for, you know, a suplex or any of those kind of things. So when I was thrown into my first match, of course it was with a woman, and everyone was like, go have fun, it's the same thing. Don't worry about it, you're going to love it. And just that pressure, and I was scared because I had never had a match with a woman before, and all my matches in practice were with Damian Adams or the Jersey Devil, and all guys that are established, and I didn't really have to work as hard. So I think my first lesson was to believe in myself a little bit more. Everyone else, to be put on the show, they showed that they believed in me, but I lacked so much self-confidence in my ability to put on a good show and to be an entertainer. And looking back now, and the little things that I've accomplished for me is just to be confident in myself and be aware that I can do this and I can put on a good show and entertain people.
So when you step into that ring and you work on your repertoire or moveset, of course the moves that you do are important, and it's great that for anyone to be creative and all of that, but it's also important to make a statement. So when you're in that ring and when the audience, no matter how big or small, is watching you, what is it that you want them to take away from your matches? I mean, when I think of you, what do you want me to think about?
I have trained, in my opinion, with some of the best in this business. Damian Adams is an incredible worker. He's an incredible mind. Mike Mondo is the same. I can't say enough good things about him. And they're all trained by Rip Rogers, who worked in WCW. He's a legend around the world. So I try to take away what story can I tell them? How can I make this? I studied a lot of World of Sport, Johnny Stain, William Regal in his days in Europe. So I try to be different. I'm not the crazy high flyer all the time and hit all these crazy high spots. I just try to be a wrestler, and I want to tell the fans a story. I want everything to make sense. So if I'm going to grab a headlock and I'm going to kick you over and I'm the babyface, I should always go, we should run our spot and I should go back to the headlock takeover. And then eventually, I go to the well one too many times and you cut me off on that headlock takeover. So that's how I'm trained, and a lot of people, have different opinions on what their psychology is, but for me, it's how do I make this make sense? I'm going to tell a story.
So when you break into the wrestling industry, you're not only thrusted into the physical end and dealing with the injuries, but you're also thrusted into the politics as well. I mean, that's no surprise to anyone in the industry right now. Was adjusting to that scene and how to be a diplomat, was that difficult for you, and how have you adjusted to it since?
I think it was difficult because you're trusting another person when you get in the ring, and, when you're putting the match together, I think at the beginning a little too generous and willing to just give my opponent, okay, you can do whatever you want to me, and now more so, I think I try to stand up for myself a little bit more and say, well, that doesn't make sense. I don't want to do that. This is my style. If you're going to get heat on me, we're going to work a body part. You're not just going to go free-for-all all over me. Like I said, I don't hit those crazy high spots and stuff like that. So now I think I try to take more control, and some people don't like that, but I'm trying to put the best show out there, and I do take Damian a lot to all the shows that I go to. We travel a lot together, so if need be, I pull him, and, he's always on my side, so people might not like that, but I'm trying to protect myself, and that's my biggest worry, so I'm going to politic my way and push my way to put on the best show, but also to protect myself and my opponent.
So you've stated that wrestling is your passion and that you want to go as far as you can with it, but how do you make sure that you stay grounded enough personally so that wrestling doesn't run your life entirely so it becomes an unhealthy obsession?
Well, right now, I go to school. I go to just a county college in Jersey, and so I go to school full time for exercise science, physical education. I'm working on a personal training certificate. I try to stay, active with my friends, and it's hard because the show's on the weekends, and they want to go out and they want to do all these things, and I don't have time for it. But I try to just get involved in as many things outside of wrestling as possible. whether it's school or, hanging out with my friends, just to try to break away from it a little bit, because I am always like wrestling. And some people say, is that healthy? I just try to be involved in as many other things as possible with, my time allowance for it.
So when you watch wrestling, whether it be on TV or online through YouTube, whatever the case is, and you study all these wrestlers, legends who have experience and who are generals in the in-ring psychology department, is there any particular something that you look for, or do you just, try to get as many videotapes under your belt as you can? I mean, what is it that you kind of look for in those study sessions that you have?
I try to just, again, with the psychology of it, I try to pick it apart and see, okay, why did they do that? Why did they do that? You know what I mean? I ask myself those questions as I'm watching, just so, there's a million different psychologies to this, and everyone has their own opinion. So I try to watch as in what I'm trained for and how does this all make sense. And a lot of times, I show Damien and I say, why did they do this and why did they do that? And just try to wrap my head around it. As far as World of Sport goes, I watch that and I try to, at training, emulate all of that. How did they do this kind of arm wringer and how did they get out of it and things like that. So I try to watch and pull out things that I would like to try to do in the ring and how can I make that make sense in a match that I want to do. I don't look for anything in particular, I don't think, just the psychology of it and cool different things to integrate into my matches.
So there's a difference between imitation and emulation when looking at different performers for, inspiration. So how do you make sure that you don't imitate but emulate those who you look up to in the industry? I think more so with that World of Sport, no one is going to be able to imitate Johnny Saint at all. I watch it and my brain is just so captivated by how mechanical it is and how much he's like a robot, but how fluid it is. So for me, I try my best to maybe imitate, but we all are different. We all have different body types and body movements and flexibility and things like that. So I don't think taking those little things to put in my matches, I would ever be able to imitate, but more of, you don't see a lot of that kind of wrestling in America. That's more of the European style and the catch-as-can style. So for me, it's more of, I'm going to try to bring that to this side of it and bring those things. You don't ever see anything like that, and that's kind of my emulation of it, I think, if that makes sense. Now, I've had many people tell me on the show that because wrestling is a part of the entertainment industry, you have to look the part first. So what is it about the look that you kind of take away from the whole sort of package deal of it? Do you think that looks should take a precedent over, let's say, wrestling skills or ability, or do you think it should be balanced? Or do you think it depends on the situation? What's your whole stance on the whole looks aspect of a wrestler?
As far as women go, I think we're held to more standard. But I don't think that if someone is a good wrestler, that if they don't look like a perfect 10, that should hold them back. I don't necessarily believe in the fact that, a lot of the women now that are showcased are models and things like that. I'm a big believer in, you can teach a monkey how to wrestle, but you can't teach that monkey how to love wrestling. So it's a hard topic for me because a wrestler should be held back because they don't have the perfect look. But I guess it's an individual thing. I don't know. It's kind of hard because everyone has their own opinion on who has that whole package. So for me, I might think like, yeah, I look great. I think I have that double look factor. But then there could be someone who is looking to bring me in and say, oh, she's not pretty enough. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword, I guess. because everyone's opinion, again, is different.
So I know you're still young in your career, but when your career has run its full course, what is it that you want people to remember you by?
I think that I would like to be remembered just for sticking to who I am and my beliefs. And if fame was to ever come to limit or anything, just to remember that the girl who used to wrestle in the American Legion, because I wouldn't want to have changed a bit. And just that I stuck to my roots and I believed in my beliefs and what I was trained with. Just that I was a humble person and this business didn't change me into something I didn't want to be. I think that happens a lot with people where they see the negative side of this business, where it is so political and it is just such a crappy business, and that it takes their toll on them. People become bitter because they don't make it, or, they get this negative feeling towards wrestling. But I don't ever want that, because even though this is all I've ever wanted to do, like I said earlier, even to be on the indies, and there's little kids out there, and to you, to them you're that star. So I think even if I was to never make it any farther than I have right now, I would still be happy, and I would still look back and be proud of myself for what I did still. So I think I would want people to remember me for just how I am now compared to whatever's to happen in the future.
Now, this is always the hardest question for any guest that I have on the program, but if you could sum up your experience as a professional wrestler using just one word, what would it be?
That is hard. I thought mind-blowing, but I don't know if that's one word.
I'm not sure either. I wish I had a dictionary in front of me.
I think there might be a hyphen in there. But honestly, I would just say incredible. Everything I've gotten to do this far is just more than I've ever could imagine for myself. And I say it all the time, if you would have told that 9-year-old girl, Deonna, that her dreams would be coming true, I don't think I would have believed you. So this whole experience, whether it's being in the ring at training 3 days a week or working for TNA on their pay-per-view, everything has just been such a dream come true for me, and the whole journey has been incredible.
So before we wrap up, I know that you have places and social media where fans or whoever else can contact you. I'd like to give you a chance to plug all of that in. So how can fans or promoters contact you if they want to book you for a show or just say hi? How can they do that?
Yeah, at my Twitter for Deonna Purrazzo. If anyone wants to say hi, you can shoot me a tweet, or, I'm always down to chat. On Facebook, the same thing. My name is Deonna Purrazzo. You can add me there. Or for promoters, if anyone's listening that would like to book me for a show, my email is DeonnaPurrazzoBookings@gmail. And I check it all the time, so if anything comes up and anyone would like to use me, I encourage you to contact me there.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Deonna. I really think that you have a very bright future ahead of you, and I think that you certainly have the passion for it. So I wish you all the best of luck. And once again, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks to everyone else for tuning in. Be sure to check out wrestling-divas, divaz.webs.com for more exclusive content, and be sure to follow the site on Twitter at Wrestling Divas, again with a Z at the end, for all the exclusive updates.